Yay!
Yes. What is up, everybody? Happy Monday. Ginger Runner Live begins now. Episode 216.
16.
Yeah, we're getting up there. I don't want to waste any time with tonight's show. Fresh off of one of the craziest, awesomest races to follow, of course, every year, Western States 100.
Yep.
Our guest tonight has been on the show before. We've talked to her about some of her incredible runs around the desert of Moab. She, I believe, has placed first in every race for the last 6 or 7 months, minus one where she placed second. I won't hold that against her. Including this last weekend's race at Western States 100, we have the 2018 Western States champ, Courtney Dauwalter, joining us on tonight's show. So many questions. I can't wait to get the recap of how this race played out in real time from Courtney herself on tonight's show. If you are watching live, of course, Kim will be in the chat room. So get those questions ready, right? That's it. Let's get into this thing. Sit back, relax, grab your beverage of choice. I have 2 beers at the ready.
Beverages of
Normally,
choice.
I drink 1 beer during the show. Keeps me level-headed, but tonight we're partying because Courtney's on, and it's going to be good. So sit back, everyone. Relax. Here we go. Ginger Runner Live begins now. Ginger Runner. Yes, so excited about tonight's show. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 216. Tonight, we are joined by the champion, the women's champion of the 2018 Western States 100, Courtney Dauwalter. I cannot wait to pick her brain about how this race played out.
I'm so happy we got Courtney here today.
Me too. Every year we talk about, well, we follow Western States. I filmed at Western States multiple times. We've been there. We've spectated, crewed, everything. And every year, it's like our Super Bowl. We just get so excited for this event. There's so many stories that play out at this 100-miler. It is epic, difficult. I have never run it, but you just know from the stories that people have told us, and it's rich in history. So to have the champion, the female champion, Courtney Dauwalter, on tonight's show is an honor. It's less than 48 hours ago that this whole thing ended. So I'm, 1, surprised she's awake. 2, surprised that she's even willing to come on the show after such a huge undertaking. So excited about that. Before we even introduce her, of course, we have some people that we need to thank at the top of every Ginger Runner Live because they helped this show happen. So all of our Patreon supporters, you guys are incredible. Thank you very much for the continued support on Patreon. Patreon.com/thegingerrunner allows us to do these live shows every single week, and the films and the reviews, and keep the Ginger Runner channel happening day in and day out. It's pretty awesome. 3 individuals in particular at the top tier are just going to bat for us, and it's been pretty amazing. Chris Lee from Hong Kong, he organizes the Trailblazer community there, which showcases the trails that Hong Kong has to offer. He's a wonderful human, raised over $10,000 for a local charity there with Where Dreams Go to Die, which is the film that I made. He did this amazing screening. Just a wonderful guy and a wonderful crew there. If you find yourself in Hong Kong or go there to race, there's tons of races there. Hit up Chris Lee, his organization Trailblazer, wonderful community, very welcoming, and they'll take you on a night on the town. I can't promise that. I don't know why I said that, but Chris is he's gonna party with you in Hong Kong. Brian Sands, longtime supporter here, and his journey has been incredible to follow. He's just been so inspired by runners that have been on the show and the community that he himself has become an inspiration, running his first marathon last year in October, currently training for his first 50K, which is coming up, I believe, in 6 weeks, I think. And there's no doubt he's going to just absolutely crush it. We'll get him on the show. Brian, this is a surprise for you, but we're going to get you on the show to talk about it. He's probably sitting in the chat right now like, put the computer away. And finally, Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They're a web design company. Rick himself is an ultra runner extraordinaire, training currently for Sinister 7 as well as the Fat Dog 120. Just a badass athlete. But he is also redoing the Ginger Runner website right now. I have to send him a couple files tonight after the show, and the website should be up very, very soon. So Patreon will get the word on that before anyone else, but very excited about the new website. They do incredible work. So big shout out to Rick and his team there. That's it for thank you. So let's get into this thing.
And just before we get into
Yes.
this thing, I do want to remind you guys that we are live. There's a ton of you guys in the chat room right now. Pop your questions in the chat room for Courtney. We'll be pulling them throughout the show.
Yeah, this is something that we do that's very unique, and it's really cool to be able to get your guys' feedback and questions in real time for our guests. So consider this your opportunity to sit down with Courtney Dauwalter less than 48 hours after the finish at Western States 100 and pick her brain. Without further ado, it's time to introduce our guest. She, again, has finished first place in almost every race she's run in the last year or so, minus Lake Sonoma, where she placed second. Is that correct, Courtney?
I ran Lake Sonoma last year and got fourth.
That's what I was thinking.
Not this year, though.
Not this year. Regardless, this weekend at Western States 100, Courtney took us all to school and just showed us what it's like to not only win one of the biggest races on earth, but do it with a smile and with a badass attitude and just with grace and humbleness that is amazing. So without further ado, our guest tonight, Courtney Dauwalter.
Yay!
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. Yeah. Fresh off the airplane and beer in hand. So
you look so like fresh and relaxed already.
Like that's what's crazy.
Ethan did not look like that after he ran his 100-miler.
Thank you very much. That is accurate.
Yeah. I haven't gotten much sleep in a couple days, but we'll see what this muddled brain can come up with tonight.
Well, I mean, what's crazy is to just point out that this isn't the longest you've run distance or time-wise by any means. In fact, we had you on the show before. We talked about your the Moab 240, which you absolutely crushed, first place overall. So in like comparing these types of events, was this a big undertaking for your body? Like, are you in a fog right now in comparison to what you've done longer times and longer distances? How does it compare in recovery wise?
Yeah, I think it was a faster 100 than I run on trails ever. Maybe a 100-mile split in a 24-hour race is faster, but that's just on a flat track. So this has definitely done some work on my legs, and I just wasn't able to sleep very well the night after when we finally got back to the hotel, or last night. There was just a lot of throbbing and general pain, but like the overall feeling of excitement makes up for it for sure.
In this scenario, biggest stage, biggest race, I mean, it has all the media attention. There's probably going to be 8 dozen films that come as a result of this race. How does it compare for you as a personal accomplishment? Is it number one, or is it amongst many? Like, how does it feel to win Western States?
It feels amazing. I don't have like a ranking list because everything's like got its special place, you know?
Yeah.
But it was really cool to share it with my husband was out there, and we had a couple good friends helping crew and pace, and then just to experience that community and the vibe out there for the first time was incredible. I mean, you hear about it. I had never been to the race before, never had crewed it, never had watched it, just had seen like the Twitter frenzy basically every year.
Right.
So to be out there and actually like experience this electricity that everyone describes, it was better than I had imagined. And in my head, it was already going to be this really incredible experience. So I'm just right now so grateful for that community and that race, and pumped for how it went.
Yeah, it's certainly a unique experience, especially as a spectator, you know, knowing that this was your first time there. We, as ultra runners and fans of the sport, watch this race on Twitter. Like, it's one of the few spectator events where you're refreshing your Twitter feed. I, of course, would be remiss without mentioning and shouting out I Run Far, Brian Powell, Megan Hicks, who do an incredible job. And they had, I believe, almost 20 volunteers out there using satellite phones and pulling a bar of signal for wherever they could get it. It was because of them that we were able to watch your race unfold, and the entire entire race. As Kim's pulling questions from the live chat, I want to make sure we're going to open with a live question here in just a second. There are a lot of people that I want to go down the finish list here of male and female finishers because there are some champs amongst these names here. We've had many of them on the show in the past. You can go check out some of their older episodes and see where these athletes have come and gone and that sort of thing. It's pretty crazy. On the men's side, Jim Walmsley set the new course record, which is incredible at 14 hours. Cool. It's incredible. Like, it's just bonkers to think that that record would ever be broken, and it was broken this weekend in temperatures, 9th hottest Western States on record. Big shout out to Jim. We had him on the show just a couple weeks ago. Second place, Francois Dehaene. I know I'm pronouncing that last name wrong, but fantastic athlete to follow. He's also just incredible. Third place, Mark Hammond. Fourth, Ian Sharman. Fifth, Jeff Browning. Ian and Jeff just take us to school on what it's like to just dominate the sport. No matter the number of races they've run.
Those two are some of my most favorite people to watch race.
Completely.
See unfold.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Sixth place, Kyle Pietari. Seventh, Cody Reed. Eighth, Charlie Ware. 9, Paul Giblin. 10, Chris Brown. And also want to shout out Nick Bassett. He is the oldest finisher of Western States. That was set this year, 73 years old. So these are the types of stories and shout these individuals out. Go show them love because they earned it. Those top 10 men will be able to come back next year. That's kind of the cool thing with Western States. Top 10 females. Of course, our guest tonight, Courtney Dauwalter, first place with the second fastest time for a female.
Like, in such hot weather.
Hot weather. That's what's crazy. So we'll get to that and how it unfolded here in just a second. Second place, local favorite, Caitlin Gerben. Caitlin, you're welcome. We ran last weekend. Her taper run was my long run. You're welcome for the second place.
I think you basically got her second place.
80%. It was all my doing. Third place, Lucy Bartholomew in her debut, her 100-mile debut. She was leading a lot of the race.
22 years old.
22 years old.
She's so young.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Fourth place, Amanda Basham. We had her on the show recently too. Basham, fantastic runner. Fifth place, Cecilia Flory. Sixth, Stephanie Violet. How? What's up, Stephanie? Absolutely crushed it with a torn quad, apparently. Managed to crush it into sixth place. Seventh, Camelia Mayfield. That's her 100-mile debut. Eighth place, Eliza Lapierre. Ninth, Corinne Malcolm. 10th, Kate Elliott. Also her 100-mile debut. That's an 81% finish rate, by the way, for this year's Western States, which is pretty incredible on the 9th hottest year. Okay. Thank you, Courtney, for being patient there. I just want to make sure I didn't want to forget to shout out the incredible top 10. Let's get to a live question here because we've got Courtney Dauwalter, and I can tell that we've already got
There are a ton of questions. I'm just trying to navigate through right now. Nathaniel in the chat room asks, question for Courtney. Running or non-running, what is your most memorable moment from Western States this year?
I think it was rolling into all the aid stations. I mean, the really big ones that you hear about, like Forest Hill and Robinson Flat, were just like streets lined with people out cheering. And I mean, it was so cool to come into those ones. But even the ones that are remote in the middle of nowhere, the volunteers, I mean, all of the aid stations were just stacked with an amazing crew of people and all sorts of support and buckets of ice water. So it was definitely the highlight, rolling in and getting to experience each of those aid stations.
That's awesome.
I was going to say, we do actually have Caitlin Gerben in the chat room right now.
She's in there?
Caitlin!
Nice.
Saying, taper run with Ethan, definitely the secret to my success.
Totally. It is not her incredible talent and ability as a runner. It is all, it's all me. So let's jump back before we start talking about 2018 states, Courtney. UTMF, Ultra Trail Mount Fuji, was the last race that you ran before this. You placed first as well in that. I'm super curious as to how that race allowed you to either train or know, did it give you any insight into what you were going to be capable of doing at Western States this year?
I mean, I went into UTMF wanting to do really well and also wanting to remind myself what 100 miles felt like, because it had been a while since I had done just a 100-mile race. Not Not just like it's small.
That sounds so crazy.
I know. I see you, Kim.
Like,
but it's like a different feel when it's that distance versus, I mean, any of them, 50 miles or 200 or whatever. But, and I figured the timing of it would be perfect for getting in a good 100-mile effort to just remind my body and put my best effort out there and then recover and be ready for Western States.
Nice. Was there a lot of training in between those races? Were there micro rate? Like, did you go run 10Ks or anything like that? What was your secret in between those two? Those are pretty big back-to-backs.
Yeah, I took time off and then just kind of got back into the normal swing of things. And then I did a 12-hour race in Minnesota in early June just to get in a last long effort. Otherwise, just business as usual.
I love it. I mean, that's talking to Courtney is refreshing in the sense of looking at longer distances with less fright or fear. I know that you approach these with respect for the distance for sure, but you have so much joy out there. All the pictures and all the videos that I saw from you this weekend, smiling, 100% smiling. Do you find lows at all while you're out there crushing these long distances at all? And how do you manage to get through some of those?
Oh, yeah, of course there's lows. I'm not just like cheesing for 100 miles.
It's so easy.
I mean, there's lows like everyone has, and you get through them however you have to get through it at that moment. So a lot of times it's like talking to myself or diverting the attention a little bit or, just accepting that it's a low point and carrying on with it and not like getting my pants in a bunch about it being a low point. Like, this is a low point. You're going to keep moving and then it's going to be fine in a little bit.
I love that. Again, let's go to the live chat room. We have over 500 people watching live here. Lots of questions coming in. If you do have questions, bring them into the chat room.
Don't get nervous. There's only only a handful of people here.
It's actually just one person with 500 computers. It's Caitlin. It's Caitlin Durbin.
Thanks, Caitlin.
A question from Kevin in the chat room. Kevin asks, how much of the course did you run before the race, or did you go into it with ignorance is bliss strategy?
Yeah, a lot of ignorance is bliss strategy. I had seen, I was able to get out in like mid-May and see basically from Forest Hill to the finish. So I knew those last 38 miles, but the entire first part of the course, I had no idea. And I like that too. I like surprises.
There's a really interesting question in here from Drew B18C1. I'm just going to ask it because I think this is a good transition from UTMF into States here. But question for Courtney, what has the Joe Rogan effect been like for you? Is it weird having recognition outside of the ultra world? So you come off of, I mean, it's a valid question. Yeah. Joe Rogan's audience is, vast and varied. It's not an ultra running crowd like our audience is. We have a lot of runners and ultra runners and stuff like that watch. But how has that effect been for you? Is it all positive, or has there been a certain level of, I just kind of want to get back to running or ultra running, like stop with the DMs? Like, how has that all affected you?
You sound so hip.
I'm so hip.
I was like, DMs. I know this one. Luckily, I'm really bad at social media in general. So it's really easy to just kind of keep doing the same thing. And it's been cool though, like connecting with people from all over who are, trying to run their first 5K or are trying to like quit smoking or, just like trying to do something they didn't think possible before. And I'm fortunate enough where they reach out and tell me their cool stories now, which feels really special and like pretty unique. So it's all been fine. Yeah.
Good. I mean, the thing is it's going to continue to grow. Like your name, your abilities are going to become more well-known to people who maybe are unfamiliar with the Courtney Dauwalter.
Yeah, we have a comment in the chat room from Amanda, and Amanda says, I found Courtney through Joe Rogan, and Courtney introduced me to the ultra world. So, and then here Amanda is here in our chat room tonight. So
that's fascinating. You know, like you are becoming a gateway for people. You know, they're seeing you dominate the sport, dominating men in the sport too, and just doing it with grace. And I talked about this in the pre-show, but you're humble and you're funny, and like it's such a great gateway for people to see that this is what the ultra running community is about. You know, it's not all about elitism or ego or any of that sort of thing. Just check that at the door and go out there and have fun. I heard in your, of course, in your post-race interview at States, and then we'll get to the race itself, but you mentioned a secret to your success, and it was absolutely distilled to the simplest of things. For those who are maybe watching that have never run 100 miles, would like to run 100 miles, what is this advice? What is your secret to getting these epic adventures done? Oh, geez, what? Was it at the finish line? I'm also realizing you might not have been aware of what was happening. You did just finish. Left foot, right foot. Left foot, right foot. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, that's really, if you break it down to the core, that's all we're doing out there, and all you have to do is maintain that forward motion and push aside anything else that like pops into your brain that's telling you to do something different. I love it. When I heard you say that at the finish line, I was like, that's awesome. Like, no, like, oh, it was this special piece of gear, or it was this thing that I did, or, you know, that it was just one foot in front of the other. Like, just move forward. You know, you'll get it done. Let's talk about the race. Towing the line for Western States, your first States, and it's a big stage, lots of media, lots of attention. Were you nervous at all the days leading up to it in Squaw Valley? Did you allow yourself some time away from the hubbub? Kind of what was your preparation in the days and hours leading up to the big event? Yeah, we got there Monday beforehand. So we had the whole week out there, which was really cool. And we stayed a little bit outside the village, so we weren't like totally surrounded by the race all the time. So we could escape and not think about it for a while. Nice. And the week was kind of a weird time warp. Like some days it felt like Saturday would never get there. And then some days it was like, Saturday is coming way too soon. I'm not ready. What are we going to do? But then once it got to race morning, it was finally just like, sweet, we're here. Now all I have to do is run. And that's the part I love doing. So I was thrilled to be standing at that start line, and the sunrise up at the top of the first huge climb was really, really spectacular. And then it just got into it, started rolling on single track, and the day just kind of like got away from, I hope everybody like got to lose themselves in just what we were doing out there. I drank beer.
You okay?
Down the wrong throat. I have two of them, apparently. So this race plays out. It's pretty difficult up front because that first climb, 3-ish miles, gain a couple thousand feet. You get up to pretty high altitude. Some of the highest points of the race are in those early high alpine miles. How did you play out this front 30 before you roll into Robinson? Are you pushing the pace? Are you trying to stay casual? Are you chasing Lucy as she's leading? How is it playing in your head and in real time? Yeah, for the first 30, mostly I was putting it into cruise control and trying to just like get all the systems going. And initially, I felt like none of the systems were working. Like I felt like my lungs were really tired, and I felt like my legs weren't really responding. And I was like, oh boy, but trying not to overanalyze it. And once I hit like 24, we got to Duncan Canyon, which is a really fantastic aid station. Got cooled down with a ice bath, basically. And after that, all the systems seemed to be in check again. So it was cruise control through those first 30, and just like starting to get the momentum going, I guess. With someone with your ability and experience, are you constantly checking in with your own body? So in this scenario, you're racing against obviously some of the best women on earth in a very competitive field. Are you doing like constant check-ins with your quads, with your legs, with your lungs, like you mentioned, high alpine plus heat? Like, are you doing that on a regular basis, or is that just too nerve-wracking? No, I'll tune in and out from it. So I don't want to be like analyzing every single second.
because the seconds go by pretty slowly then. But like to check in, just see where things are at, and then kind of check back out from it and just enjoy the process and enjoy what I was doing. And then a little bit later, check back in. So it's a back and forth, and sometimes those check-ins are closer together, and sometimes it's pretty spaced out.
Nice. Again, we are live. Lots of live questions. Let's get to some of these.
A lot of live questions.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll stop talking so much.
Question from Kim Wrinkle in the chat room. Kim asked,
Hey, Kim.
was your strategy to let your body and the weather dictate, or did your pacing strategy pretty much go according as planned?
It did, because I didn't have a plan. So it went perfectly to the no plan. Yeah, I had no plan. I had no splits in mind. I had no pacing in mind. I knew that I wanted to put myself in a position to fight at the end. And that meant, not getting a huge gap on me, but it also is a crazy race where things happen. And a time gap between people doesn't tell you very much, because you could blow up, they could blow up. So I was kind of trying to just do my own thing, especially for that first half. And then just tried to pick up the efficiency and intensity a little bit in the second half.
See, that's interesting. I've been following this race, reporting on this race for years, and that's one thing that I find is the common thread is the people who are, I say patient, a lot of people say strategically correct, but pacing that front 30 to 50 miles in a way that doesn't put you deep into a hole or anything. Those are the individuals that tend to really succeed later in the race, because they're dealing with heat and they're dealing with different ways of blowing up later on. It seems like you did that. It seems like you were running Courtney's race in your own way, as opposed to expectation or by a pacing strategy or anything like that. Was there ever a point that you were clicked over into the hunt mode? Like, now's the time to move forward. Now's the time to start pushing the pace because Courtney is ready to go.
I don't think it ever necessarily clicked into hunt mode, but through the canyon section, I was trying to really work those uphills and downhills and try and take advantage of some of that climbing and descending. But I was never hunting, I don't think.
That's good. That's interesting. Just the way things were unfolding, at least from our end as a spectator, you see the gaps of 20, 30, 40 minutes, and you can sit there and go, oh no, there's no way this individual can make up that sort of gap. But you realize that's nothing. In a 100-mile race, 30, 40, even 50 to an hour is nothing. It could be between two aid stations, and all of a sudden that gap is closed. And we'll get to that gap being closed here in just a second. Let's get to a live question, and then we'll start talking about what happened at Michigan Bluff.
Sure. Question from Nathaniel. Courtney, you were in the chase pack during the early miles. Does being behind the leader drive you forward, or do you prefer to lead?
I kind of like both in their own way. I like when the race is in front of me and I know exactly what's happening. But I also don't mind taking the lead and then just trying to build a gap. It's just trickier if you're in the lead, because you don't really get that much information and have to just keep assuming that people are catching you or that they're closing the gap. So I like them. I like it both ways, and got to do both of those things on Saturday, which was cool.
Yeah. So going into Michigan Bluff, you passed Lucy somewhere in those canyons. What is it like amongst the lead women when one passes another? Is it friendship? Is it like, hey, you're cheering each other on? Is it like, I'm gonna pass her and pass her fast? What is it like up there at the very, very front?
It was super friendly. I mean, we chatted and just kind of checked in on each other, what was hurting, what were we feeling, and then tried to encourage each other a little bit. So it was like, Lucy, jump on board, we're gonna roll into this aid station together. So yeah, it was cool to see people out there, and Lucy is going to be a force. I mean, holy cow, a 22-year-old in her first 100-miler. That was amazing. So it was cool to witness some of that.
I imagine that she'll be reaching out and asking like advice, because obviously you put together a pretty damn good race yourself. So from Michigan Bluff to Forest Hill and through these, Forest Hill is mayhem. I know as a spectator, it's absolute mayhem. Does that help you? Are you the type that feeds off that energy, and are you pushing the pace from that point forward, or what's going through your brain when you start rolling through these later aid stations?
Yeah, Forest Hill was so cool. People were cheering so loud. And it just kept going. Like I thought we were through all of it, and then there was a whole nother block of people out cheering, and then another block after that. So that was really cool. And I'd also picked up my husband there as my pacer to Green Gate.
Mm-hmm.
So like down the Cal Street section and across the river. So yeah, it was really fun, but I was not in like much of a talking mood anymore.
Sure.
A lot of my energy was being used. So he didn't get to like enjoy much conversation. I was just like, we're going, like we're doing business right now.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. Was there ever doubt from this point forward? You get to the river, there's so much race left. Did doubt ever creep in?
I mean, the last split I had gotten was 13 minutes at Forest Hill was where Lucy was. And I also knew like Stephanie How Violet was charging hard at that point. Caitlin Gerben was charging hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was some amazing stuff happening back there. So I wasn't doubting, but I was assuming that they were reeling me in and that I needed to keep moving as quickly as possible to hold them off as long as possible.
And still doing it with a smile. That's like, whether you were putting it on or not for the cameras, it's still like, man, Courtney's having so much fun. And
it was so fun. It's such so a cool atmosphere.
I love seeing runners have a good time, especially runners who are winning. I know that the sport can get serious. I know that that's part of it, especially those who win. But to see someone with such joy run through the aid stations, and like what it does is it helps everyone else have a good time. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's wonderful. And I wasn't even there, and I'm sitting and refreshing, just like, oh my God, Courtney's, this is so great. Let's get to some live questions while I pop open number 2.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
Andrew in the chat room was asking, how long did you typically spend at an aid station?
Not super long. I had the most amazing crew, and we were just NASCARing our way through it. I think Caitlin Gerben, if she's still on, called her crew a NASCAR pit crew, and we should have like a head-to-head duel, because I think my crew was like the most fantastic. They couldn't have done it any better. So probably less than 3 minutes at every aid.
Wow, that's actually
really
pretty tight time. Yeah.
And Charles in the chat room was asking, who was your crew and how much of an impact did they make? And you just mentioned the impact that they made. So who was helping you out there?
My husband, and then my friends John and Melody Stanley were out there. And then my other buddy got in off the wait list, like way last minute. He got in last week. So he was out there with his family as well. So it was cool to just like be sharing it with him.
Pacing wise, I believe there was a story that your husband just like had a hard time keeping up with pacing. Like that was his biggest worry, was that he was just, he's like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with Courtney. That's my biggest worry. How was that dynamic? I'm assuming you guys have paced one another, or he's paced you before. So you guys have done that whole thing. So you guys have probably worked through a lot of relationship stuff on pacing as we have. So I'm curious, like, how did that play out between you guys, like up to the river and stuff?
Yeah, it was great. He didn't make it to the river, but it was super. I think I lost him a couple miles from the Rucky Chucky crossing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he said he'll now pace me for 200-mile races, but maybe 100-mile races aren't for him. I had like some pacer catastrophes. My next pacer then took a huge digger behind me, because I mean, we were working really hard after Green Gate.
Yeah.
And he tripped and caught his toe and went like tumbling off the side of this huge slope. slamming into a tree, and his wrist is, I think, fractured. Like, it's like a melon
Oh
now.
my God.
But he was like, he popped right back out, like sticks all in his hat and stuff, and he was like, yeah, everything's good, keep going, keep going. I'm like, dude, are you okay? Yeah, totally fine. Turns out afterwards he has this broken wrist. Like, I'm so sorry. So I might not have any pacers anymore or friends. I don't know.
But that's ultra running, and that's so awesome. Is that the pacer one is doing exactly what he needs to do, which is not let you in on. Yes, I broke my wrist, I broke my arm, or whatever's going on. Courtney, everything's fine. Like, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
That's
like,
brilliant.
Go.
I hope he heals.
Yeah.
Me too.
I
Okay.
hope you heal.
Sending out the healing vibes. Let's get to another live question. What do we got?
Yeah, let's see here. Another great question from Nathaniel in the chat room. Courtney, can you describe sponsorship rules during high-profile events like Western States? Do those commitments, if any, impact your race preparation?
I don't know that I have like tons of information or like things to share on that, but Solomon is my main sponsor, and they helped a ton with just like getting some great gear for this race specifically. So we had these hats that, I mean, you could load them with ice in the top. It was life-saving, I'm pretty sure. And like some shorts for me that worked perfectly for the temperature and stuff. So they've been really helpful with that. I don't know if I can speak to like all the pieces of his question because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I imagine that for someone at your level, your race is your race, and I can imagine that like a sponsor's like, you need to do this. You need to get to Forest Hill in first place. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was none
that's
of
how
that.
It works. Yeah.
I mean, they were just like, dude, have a great race out there. Here's some stuff that'll help.
Yeah. There are a lot of gear questions, of course, in the chat room, a lot of nutrition questions. So before we get to the big finish, the last probably 10 miles or so, let's talk a little bit about nutrition. What was your plan going into it? Did you have to scrap it, or did you stick with it, and did it work?
I stuck with the normal stuff. So I had Tailwind going in, Honey Stinger waffles and chews, and then I had mashed potatoes. And all day long, those are the only things that I was having, and it worked perfectly. Oh, and a popsicle, which was quite the treat.
I remember mashed potatoes from last time we had you on. Like, just cups of mashed potatoes was something I think you like. That was all that you could eat at that time, in Moab or something. But it's 100+ degrees out there. You finished just after nightfall. So how do hot potatoes, or is it cold at that point? Like, how does that work out there?
Yeah, so we had them cold this time. We didn't.
Okay.
We thought of that. We're smarter than we look sometimes. But yeah, they were cold, and I actually had them in like this thing I could carry with me in my vest, and so I was just like slow dripping mashed potatoes all day long, which I think for me helped a ton in not having to wait and then like jam a whole cupful in at an aid station and then run with it. To be able to just eat like a little bit every mile or two was perfect for me, and I didn't have any stomach issues all day.
You need to create a company and call it Dauwalter Taters and just sell mashed potatoes for ultra runners in like little packs.
That. No, don't steal that idea, anybody.
Dauwalter Taters is Courtney's, but putting it in like little squeeze packs, like maybe you just microwave them if you want them hot. Oh my God, this is brilliant!
You should keep these ideas quiet.
Go off the air to talk about
this is an off the air conversation.
Wow, off the air. I'm editing this whole segment just right out of the archivers.
Thank you.
$1 million idea. So you talked about the ice hat, like heat management is a huge deal with this race. People talk about it every year going into it. So was it just ice? I know that the race organization said that they had, it was 65 pounds of ice per runner, which works out to about 0.65 pounds of ice per mile per runner.
You're so proud of your math.
I am. Not taking into account meltage or any of those types of things. But that's a lot of ice out there for the runners. What were some of your secrets? And I know that you talked about the hat. So like what was the management like, and did it work?
Yeah. So filled the hat at every aid station, and then, it held a lot of ice. So it looked like a little like mushroom head for a while once it was full.
Right.
But then it would just like keep dripping on you and keep your head cool for a solid. I mean, I think mid-afternoon I was getting probably 4 miles of just dripping cold water out of it before it would dry up a little bit. And then like a ice bandana full of ice, and then just staying soaked all day. I've never run a race where I was soaking wet like that all day long. But I think for me, it kept my temperature down, and there were points where I felt really hot, but it was never like an issue, or I never had to hide under a tree for a couple minutes and cool down. It was just keep trucking and then get to that next aid station to do a refill on all this ice. The race was so prepared for this heat. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, 65 pounds of ice per person. That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And also a testament to the race and the volunteers, all the aid stations, Craig Thornley and his whole team. 81% as a finish rate is incredibly high, not just for a 100-miler, but for a 100-miler with over 100-degree temperatures.
Yes.
It's incredible. It's really, really a testament to all of their work. So big shout out to them, the whole team. Let's get to a couple more live questions.
Yeah, you were just mentioning some of your gear that you're using. Caroline in the chat room asked, please ask Courtney, where can I get a pair of shorts that she races in? I love them. I wear baggy running shorts too, and it's not easy to find for women.
Yeah, it's true. I usually shop the men's section. So the ones I was wearing specifically, I'm not sure you can buy yet, but we'll work on that.
Nice. There's got to be a Dauwalter shorts as well. We'll make it happen.
I gotta hire you to like help me put some of these businesses into motion.
We'll make it happen. We shall make millions. So now I want to talk about this towards the end here. You're coming into the last few miles, no hands bridge. I mean, the iconic parts of this course that you obviously run on before in the training runs, but now in the experience of being in first place, do you get emotional during races? Is there any time during this race that it hit you that you were about to win Western States in your debut at this event?
Yeah, I have a thing where I won't talk, like I won't even let the thought come into my mind until I actually cross the finish line, because weird things happen sometimes. So I didn't think about it. I mean, obviously I knew we were close, and my pacer and I at that time were like, like talking about how cool the day had been, and how special it was to be out there, like sharing those last miles with him. And but we never actually said, we're about to win this thing until you cross the finish line.
Yeah, is that a conversation you have with them beforehand? Like, don't even bring it up?
No, I mean, they know. Like, I've had weird things happen near the end of races that can throw a wrench in the plan. So it's not something you acknowledge until it actually happens.
And crossing, I mean, I guess arriving at the track is one of those moments that even like I've documented it in film, and it's emotional for just being a viewer and a spectator, seeing someone arrive at Placer High School. Did you let yourself believe it then, or did it really not occur to you until the end, crossing that finish line?
Then I started believing it a little more, and it was, I mean, lapping that track was, I'll never forget that. That was really cool, and just to have people who had stayed out there for us to finish, I mean, it was awesome. The whole atmosphere was so cool.
And I want to point out that you were moments behind Zach Bitter, who also finished in 11th place. You were 12th overall. So it wasn't like, 25 men finished and then the first female. You were 12th overall. So you were almost in the top 10 men as well, which is like, that's the testament to this performance on this day. Courtney, it is an incredible thing to have you on the show and to talk to you about this race. It is huge, and I hope that this is a moment in your career that just skyrockets it, because I think you're an incredible ambassador to the sport. I think you're doing incredible things for younger members of our sport. I imagine there's countless young women that look up to you and for inspiration and leadership, and You're awesome. You really are.
Thank you.
You're a class act, and it's been just a joy to know you and to have you on the show. We've already done the quickie question quiz with Courtney, I believe, but
I passed.
you did pass
I did pass
with flying colors. But I do want to kind of go over like shoes and gear. So because we do have a huge audience that does enjoy some of the gear talk.
A lot of shoe questions in the chat.
A lot of shoe questions. Yeah. So maybe let's start from the top and go to the bottom and end with the shoes. What were we talking about as far as gear, like pack and shirt and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it was all Salomon. So I'm not sure if all of it can be purchased, but just, the basic pack and t-shirt. It was just like the lightweight white t-shirt to absorb water and keep me cool all day. And then I was in Injinji socks. Those keep me blister free, and squirrel's nut butter is what I use for my feet and just anti-chafe in general. And then I was in some Salomon shoes that are basically like a Sense Ride with a couple tweaks to them.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sense Ride is one of my favorite shoes of 2017. I can't wait to get the 2s, which I believe are coming out soon. But I love that you're working on those. Make them a little Dauwalter special.
You guys should work together, and
we'll make it like an extra special.
Another thing.
Add it to the list. Before we move into the post show, as always with our guests on Ginger Runner Live, we do a post show where we get to sit down. Again, it's literally in a couple of seconds here, but our Patreon crew gets to interact with our guests on a more one-on-one basis, so we get through the questions on a much more rapid basis. If you'd like to join us for any and all post shows, it's as little as $1 a month, literally a fraction of a latte or a coffee, at patreon.com/thegingerrunner. You'll get access to all the archives and all the future episodes. So do that right now if you guys want to get ready and join us for the post show with Courtney, 2018 Western States champion. Thank you, Courtney. Where can people find you on social media? Because I know that you're gonna get a swarming.
Listen, Courtney said she was already bad at social media.
Is there one that maybe you prefer over the other? Because people are gonna start sending you DMs, and I'd like it to be in one place.
I'm learning. Just give me a minute. It's at Courtney Dauwalter on Instagram, at Court Dauwalter on Twitter, and then Courtney Dauwalter on Facebook.
Ginger Runner Live viewers, you guys know the drill. Go follow Courtney, show her some love, thank her for being on the show. It is an honor to have her on tonight's episode, so fresh off of the Western States 100 victory. Again, 17 hours, 27 minutes it took Courtney to get from Squaw to Auburn, which is a ridiculous short amount of time. This course was brutally hot this year, 9th hottest race since its inception. Just a testament to her ability as an athlete. And again, I think she's an icon in our sport now. It's just so cool to see someone so nice and humble and fun do some incredible things. So Courtney, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You got it. How's the beer? What are you drinking?
Oh man, I'm going healthy tonight. I got a Stone Tangerine Express IPA.
Is that?
I like that. That's healthy.
What is isn't yours tangerine also?
So the choice was between Stone Tangerine or the Winter Brewing. I always pronounce it wrong, but Winter.
Gotta get your vitamins.
Tangerine IPA. It's like orange juice.
Yeah.
With 8% booze. I'm trying to think. Am I forgetting anything before we move into the post show with Courtney?
I don't think so. We have a ton of questions, so
we will get to all the questions that we have residual. We'll get to the Patreon questions, but also we're going to talk to Courtney about what's next, because she's coming to the Northwest. And it's going to be awesome. I'm going to say she might be running Squamish. She is. She's registered.
She might also be going somewhere else that a lot of people are talking about in the chat room. So maybe we can get to that.
Yeah, we will get to that, because I think what's next in Courtney's trajectory is going to be kick-ass. And we're going to talk to her a little bit about that in the post show. I'm using all the adjectives tonight.
You're going for it.
Well, we have Courtney on. I have to go for it.
And also the 2 beer.
It might be the second beer too. Normally it's just one. Courtney, thank you so much. And stick around, everybody. Let me do this. We're going to go into the post show with Courtney here in just a couple of seconds. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/thegingerrunner. New live shows every Monday, post shows right after, new videos, films, interviews, and reviews.
And new gear coming out soon.
New gear. So, as many of you know, our dog had to undergo some pretty serious surgery. He was diagnosed with cancer. It was a squamous cell carcinoma in his jaw. So, we had to have half of his jaw removed. I don't mean to make this serious. It has been. So, he's unfortunately had to go in for a second surgery last week because some of the surgery didn't go well with the first one. We are going to create wraps, head wraps. We already have the designs pretty much chosen and picked out thanks to the Patreon crew who have provided a bunch of feedback. So those are going to be made, and those profits are going to go directly to paying for the surgeries, because guess what? It's quite a few zeros more than we expected. So rather than set up a GoFundMe or anything like that, we're going to sell gear, and the gear is going to look cool and be cool, and really excited about that, actually. So look for that not only on the YouTube channel, but also on gingerrunner.com. We'll be unveiling that here probably in the next week or so, plus t-shirts and hats, all sorts of cool stuff coming soon. I think that is it.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll see you guys in the post
show.
And the post show. So yeah, Patreon crew, we'll see you guys over there in just a couple seconds. Otherwise, go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. Keeps the lights on, the mic's hot, helps everything happen here week after week. Otherwise, get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. I know I am. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Ginger.